Easy.
Okay, I'd like to call a meeting, budget meeting for Monday, January 28th, 2019 to order. Approval of the agenda. Recommendation, please. Councilor Mowbray.
That council approves the Monday, January 28th, 2019 budget meeting agenda as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Majinski. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 3.1, adoption of the minutes. Recommendation, please. Councilor Kirby.
The council adopts the minutes of the Monday, January 7th, 2019 regular council meeting as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Falcon. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Okay. No petitions or delegations. No. And moving on to 6.1, correspondence. Honorable Andrew Scheer, congratulations. Correspondence from the Honorable Andrew Scheer, dated November 2018. Congratulating Mayor Bertrand on the recent election. Recommendation, please. Councilor Mowbray.
For information,
Seconder. Councilor Kirby, all in favor? Carried. 6.2, Bob Zimmer. Correspondence from Bob Zimmer as a member of Parliament for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies, dated November 28th, 2018. Congratulating Mayor Bertrand on the recent election. Recommendation, please. Councilor Majinski.
For information.
Seconder. Councilor Lehman, all in favor? Carried, thank you. 6.3, Ministry of Education, 2019 Premier's Award for Excellence. Correspondence from the Ministry of Education dated January 7th, 2019. Announcing the launch of the 2019 Premier's Awards for Excellence in Education. Recommendation, please. Councilor Majinski.
For information.
Secretary. Councilor Kirby. All in favor? Carried. 6.4, Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association, resolutions of support. Correspondence from the Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association dated January 11, 2019, requesting 2 resolutions of support for grant applications to Northern Development Initiative Trust. Recommendation, please, Councilor Mowbray.
that the District of Tumbler Ridge support the grant application from the Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association for the Northern Development Initiative Trust Community Halls and Recreation Facilities Grant for funding up to $30,000 for their pump track project.
Seconder. Councilor Kalka. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Second recommendation, please. Councilor Mowbray.
That the District of Tumbler Ridge support the grant application from the Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association for the Northern Development Initiative Trust Marketing Initiative Grant for the funding up to $5,000 for their website development project.
Seconder. Councilor Majinski. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 6.5, Alaska Highway Community Society appointment. Correspondence from the Alaska Highway Community Society dated January 17th, 2019, requesting that a District of Tumbler Ridge representative and alternate for council, staff, or the public be appointed to the Alaska Highway Community Society Board of Directors for a 2-year term. Recommendation, please. Councilor Kirby.
The council received the correspondence from Alaska Highway Community Society dated January 17th, 2019, requesting that a District of Tumbler Ridge representative and alternate be appointed for information. For discussion.
Seconder. Councilor Kalka. All in favor? Carried. Open for discussion, please. Councilor Kirby.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I've sat on this board before, and I have no problem sitting on it again, if council so chooses.
Any other discussion? I'd like to move that District of Tumbler Ridge appoint Councilor Kirby to the Alaska Highway Community Society with alternate being our EDO. Seconder, Councilor Kukalka. discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Alright, bylaws 7.1. Council remuneration and expenses amendment bylaw number 674, 2019. Report from the Deputy Corporate Officer dated January 28th, 2019. To seek adoption of the proposed council remuneration and expenses amendment bylaw number 674, 2019. Recommendation, please. Councilor Majinski.
That the council remuneration and expense amendment bylaw number 674, 2019 be adopted.
Seconder, Councilor Pavelka. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. New business, 8.1, fleet replacement policy. Report from the Deputy Director of Finance dated January 28th, 2019, to propose a policy to guide the district towards an effective fleet replacement plan as part of the asset management plan. Recommendation, please. Councilor Kirby.
Recommendation as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Norbury. Open for discussion. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, before item 8.2, Mr. Wall has got a small presentation for us.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I just wanted to walk through a little bit of the financial history of Tumbler Ridge for council. I think that the seasoned council members have seen most of this information before, but it's good to share with everybody and just maybe do a little refresh. So the objective of this is to go through and take a look at the historical trends in Tumbler Ridge and revenue, surplus, and debt, and understand how previous councils have managed the municipality. So this shows our revenue in Tumbler Ridge adjusted for inflation over time. That first downturn in revenue there was on the original mine shutdown, and after the mines came back online, you can see that our revenue has pretty much steadily increased, with last year being our biggest revenue year ever at the upper end of 17 million. I'll go through here in a second where we're getting most of our revenue from. So these are our historical tax rates. You can see that since about 2000, our business tax rates have been cut in about almost a third, and our residential tax rates have been cut in half. And at the same time, there's been a fairly substantial increase in our major industrial. The reality is that most of our revenue comes from our major industrial taxes. And you can see this as I plot that previous line and just take it and superimpose it over our historical tax rates. It matches almost exactly the decisions that have been made with heavy industrial taxes. The reality is that most of our taxes are coming from heavy industry. So our tax rates on business and residential are generally lower. So this is going right here, this is our mill rates. But what that means is our residential taxes are pretty substantially lower than you'll find in another community. So our residential tax rate burden on a representative house in Tumbler Ridge is about $1,100 or $1,200. Now this is the municipal portion. It doesn't include the PRRD taxes, the school taxes. This is what the municipality collects for ourselves. So if we were to match a typical community, it would take over doubling our residential taxes to match what is done in a normal community that offers services like we do. Our business taxes have an even bigger gap. There's about a 3 times increase if we were to match what a typical community would be charging. And what that all works out to is in Tumbler Ridge, we collect about $1 million in residential taxes. A community that has a more more typical tax rate would be collecting 2 from residential. We collect about $500,000 from business. A more typical tax rate in a community would be collecting just under 2. But the reason that Tumbler Ridge has never had to do that, and we still have these massive revenues, is we're getting 66% of our tax revenue from industry and 20% from utilities. If you were to go into the more average community in British Columbia, you would be looking at probably 2% industrial and 4% utility, the rest of it being made up from residential and business taxes. So Tumbler Ridge has a fairly heavy reliance on industry and utilities, but we also have heavy industry and utilities in a rate in our community that other municipalities don't. And the reality is Tumbler Ridge was designed this way. It was designed so that these industries would be paying for the services. You can see, if I go back here, that heavy industry increase in the taxes on heavy industry was really a result in the change of the corporate attitude towards Tumbler Ridge. After the original mine shut down, when the mines came down, they weren't as involved in spending in the municipality. You know, when it was first being built, the mines would come in, they built the golf course, they helped fund the community center, and that was through grants or money that they put through. The new reality of the new mines that came in and were operating, that money wasn't coming, so the councils decided to collect that through taxation instead, and that's how we end up there. So this is a mapping of our revenue versus expenditures, our blue being revenue, our red being expenditures, and you can see our expenditures in that mine shut down in the 2000s really decreased to very low levels and then slowly started to increase. And so we can see our expenditures shooting up here in about 2015. That coincides with our capital replacement plan. It's not really an increase in our operational budget. It's simply that we've started to replace our capital. And that's for two reasons. One, because for a long time there, we stopped maintaining our capital probably at the level that we should have, so we're having to play catch up. And the other part of it is Tumbler Ridge being an instant town. Our equipment was all bought at the same time, our buildings were bought at the same time, so a lot of it has come due at the same time as well. Luckily for us, our revenue has increased when we've needed to make our expenditures. So if you just subtract your revenue and expenditures out, you can see our surplus throughout the years, and that black line there is our financial position, so that's how much cash we have in the bank. Right there. So that was in 2000 during the original mine shutdown. We had about $16 million in debt adjusted for inflation. The town at that time decided to sell off a lot of its asset and land in order to pay that off. And so that's when it went up there. And you can see we've gone along, and that crook in about 2010 where our revenue starts to shoot up, that's going to match almost exactly with the decision to start increasing the heavy industrial taxes, which is why we're in this position. So going through this budget, council has decisions to make, but very high level predictions, and this will change depending on the decisions that you guys make through your budgeting process. This year, likely going to be taking in about 16.5 million in revenue, an operating budget of about 11 million. That includes your grant and aid spending as well. Capital 3.7 million in new, and that'll leave us with about a $2 million surplus. So that's not factoring in the carryover for things that were already taxed and put away last year. Look at. And I think the big things to take away from this is that we're in a strong financial position right now, both in terms of saving and cash flow, and that most of our revenue comes from heavy industrial, utilities, and grants. The reality of our residential tax base is such that even increasing it up to that typical level, it doesn't really make a big difference in the amount of taxes we bring in. I'm happy, I know I went through that quick, so I'm happy to go back through anything and answer any questions that you may have.
I just have a quick question on that, those typical numbers. Which communities did you use to formulate those typical numbers?
Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, Fort St. John. Tuskegee.
An average of each, or?
Yeah.
Any other questions, councilors? Okay, thank you very much.
Just a comment
Councilor
there.
Howell.
Yeah, just a comment. I like the high level overview that Jordan gave there, Mr. Wall. Sorry. I think that's kind of important for us to kind of key in on, right? That's kind of like Jordan's best guess at the way he's got the budget presented is kind of where we're at. And you know, right off the get-go, the way it looks right now, if we were to prove everything, you know, you got kind of an idea we're into a surplus right off the get-go here. So that being said, it's still, you know, to look at this thing objectively and realize where we are. We are in a very lucky position where we are. You know, it's the long-term spending that we got to really keep in mind, like the fixing of the buildings and the roads and the, you know, piping and that type of stuff, right? So, but I like that. I like that, you know, you I don't think we've done something like that previously where we were able to kind of have an idea going into it. Like we kind of, everything got thrown at you, and then at the end you kind of figured where your high level was at, right? This is a good slide, I think.
Absolutely. Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wong. Okay, moving on to 8.2, capital and special projects budget. A report from the Chief Administrative Officer dated January 28th, 2019, to present to council the capital and special project requests contained in the 2019 to 2023 financial plan. We'll deal with each schedule as a separate recommendation. So first recommendation, please, Councilor Norbury.
That council approves the capital and special projects contained in Schedule A.
Seconder, Councilor Kirby. Open for discussion. Councilor Hopper.
So I'd like to remove one of the things out of Schedule A before we move with this, just so that we can have a complete discussion with council with everything that's in here.
So that would be a separate motion, would it not?
It will have to be, yeah, but that's, I don't, and my problem is the public works storage yard. So I'd like that one removed, and then we can come back to it, but that's what the motion I would like to put forward eventually.
Okay, so
The reason is I have a conflict of interest with it, so if this goes through, I gotta work it.
go ahead, Mr. Wong.
With that request, because none of these items are tied to each other, simply by asking, it's now separated. So
Okay.
that's out, Schedule A can move forward
Okay.
with the other recommendations in here.
Very well. So we'll deal with that separately afterwards.
It's a much easier way than previous years.
Well, if you wanted to feed it, it's a different story, but you just want that separate. vote.
That's fine.
Okay, and that's because of the conflict of interest.
Yes.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Councilor Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Birch. I'm just curious on the vac truck replacement, if it's truck for truck. Are we just replacing the same truck we have with a new one? Or is it a different type of truck?
As far as I understand, it's the same type of truck, single axle, back truck. Councilor Lee.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. $500,000 seems like an awful lot. And I've asked different operators of that what their trucks were worth. Like $500,000 is quite a machine. I think you're looking at, that's a hydrovac.
Yeah, that's definitely budgeted amount, for sure.
Wow.
The units off the back truck, the actual the back unit is quite expensive for sure. But I would say that would likely be on the high end of the budget.
So,
It is a very important piece of equipment for the district. And I have asked if our old one will be kept as a backup, just in case with new trucks, they tend to have a lot of problems with them, especially with emission controls and that, so if any comments or questions, Councilor Howe?
Yeah, just to echo Councillor Lehman's concerns there. Perhaps we could get a bit of a breakdown from staff on just what they're looking at there. Is the vac unit $300,000 and $200,000 truck, or just give us some indication. Maybe they need $50,000 to rig it up. Just so we have a little bit more indication on it. So
Mr. Wall, so these are budgeted amounts. When we go forward to go ahead and purchase this equipment, does this come back, or is this just overall approval of budget amount?
So at this point, this wouldn't be approval to go out and purchase. We'll come back to council probably sometime in May and look for approval on capital items to move forward. But when it goes out to purchase, it does go out to tender, and so that tender will go out as per purchasing policy. But maybe Mr. Beal, do you have anything to add on
yeah, I'm not sure what Councilor Lehman, portion of the Councilor Lehman is thinking about it as far as a back truck, this is a specialized piece of equipment. It's not only a back truck, but it's also a rodder. So we have a rodder, it's a 200-foot hose that pressurizes our sewer lines and that. So that's also part of the truck. There are specialized units for mostly municipal works. You don't see them in the oil fields. You see back trucks in the oil fields. This is a back, it's a specialized piece of equipment. Hence the $500,000.
Councillor Aubrey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Beal, for that breakdown. I feel that these guys on the ground, they're the ones telling us what's needed to get the job done, and I trust that they're giving us fair estimates, and if they're able to get a deal, they'll get a deal, and we just say, all right, if this is the tool you need, it's the tool you need, and we'll trust in that.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Howe?
Is there any type of through to you, to Jordan, Mr. Beal, I guess? Is there any type of a wash unit or anything on it, Mr. Beal? Is it your explanation is good and great, but a little more info, I guess, is what we're looking for, right? When we make a $500,000 spend, I don't mind taking a bit of time to talk to staff a little bit about it, and this is the opportunity to do it. So I'm just curious a little bit more about the unit and what it can do and that type of stuff.
So the mayor and council, so because it is a specialized unit, it carries water that we need for the rodder. The rodder works on water pressure. So that involves pumps, valves. It also has a hydro backing, so we have our own pressure washer. So we normally can carry, if we're just strictly using a rodder and pressure washing, we can carry almost 2,000 gallons. So those factors, they suck, they don't use water for pressure or anything, that's the reason.
So you can use it like a spray wand as well, like you could
So
again
it
to
does
wash something
have,
off an oil spill or something.
It also comes with flushers, so you see on the front of the Vector, it has spray bars, so we can flush, wash roads,
Right.
Water roads, we have a back spray bar as well.
Perfect.
So it is quite unique when it comes to municipal services.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions in regards to the first schedule? Councillor Howe?
Just like a little more explanation on the storm water drainage upgrades.
Mr. Wall?
So this is really the result of, going back to that presentation, that dip in 2000, and the regular maintenance on some of our areas not being done. And so our stormwater system has started to clog up. And so this would be to bring in contractors to go through the whole system and clean them. Our stormwater system naturally here is good. We've got the right type of rock for it. So we could probably withstand that 25-year event if we do take care of this and maintain it properly, which as we've been going through and replacing the items in our asset replacement, we ensure that we've got regular maintenance plans to go along with them. And this would just help ensure that that water can flow. Noah's going to have to build a boat before this town floods if we do. The people who chose where to put Tumble Ridge made a very good choice. Every year, right, it seems every 2 years now Dawson and Chetwynd are flooding, and Tumble Ridge hasn't got it yet. And so this is just to make sure we don't get it. And it is expensive, that $250,000 for sure. But I think the last flooding event cost Chetwynd almost $5 million. And Dawson, they spend a couple million on it every year repairing their stuff. So I believe this is money well spent.
Councillor Howe?
Yeah, and so this is the stormwater drainage that are under the roads, like it's to get the sand and the dirt out of them, or is this ditching along the roadways, or is this all encompassing?
All
Or
encompassing. Clear up the ditches, get everything cleaned up, and have that water flow.
okay,
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Howe?
downtown assessment report. Just curious if this was not part of our paving and sidewalk assessment that we did previous to us, replacing the storm drains and the asphalt downtown. So this is strictly the concrete sidewalks and the paving stone area, I'm not under the impression that we're gonna be doing storm drains and stuff.
As well as the, oh my goodness. Roman circle, thank you. And that area as well. And so part of difficulty that we're going to run into this is that we share the infrastructure with the businesses along this area. And so we've got this as pegged as going a few steps in a year. It might take longer because we need to really work with businesses on how we're going to do this. I don't think that our property lines actually cut anywhere that's natural. You would hope that your property line would cut along an end of one piece of infrastructure into another, and in large parts of, especially down in front of those streets down there, I don't think they do. So it's that the area in between the walkway that goes between the two streets is falling apart. All of those areas, those weren't part of the pavement assessment reports.
Oh, okay.
So it's to get all of that done and ready to go work with the businesses and see what we can do there.
Okay. So this would be a lot of surface concrete work. Okay.
Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Just about this Southgate sidewalk extension, is there more paving happening this spring and summer? Or is that it? Okay. Because I wasn't sure if there was going to be any at all. Okay, thank you.
More comments or questions? Okay, so call the question on the first recommendation. All in favor, council approves capital special projects contained in Schedule A, excluding the storage facility? Carried, thank you.
Oh, was that declaration of how? Is that good enough?
Yeah, you should say it when you stand up. You just say it again. And
Okay, so I have to leave because I have a storage yard and conflict. So.
Okay, recommendation for storage facility, Councilor Norrie.
That council approves the capital project of the PW storage yard.
Fault mine. Is this including the concept of CCANs as well, or just the building of the yard?
this would be the building of the yard and the purchase of the few CCANs.
So it is including some CCAN, or good, okay. Thank you.
Storage area. Any other comments, questions? Okay, call the question, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, under item 8.2, second recommendation, please. Councilor Kirby.
That council approves capital and special projects contained in Schedule B.
Seconder, Councilor Kalka. Open for discussion. Councilor Howe.
Yeah, just on the golf course equipment for $16,000. Took a lot of work for $16,000. Is that correct?
The amount budgeted?
Yep.
Mr. Wall.
You mean that's too much work for 16,000?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? It's not going to be a replacement of every sand trap
Okay.
or gravel. It's just continued work on it.
Okay.
Mr. Wall, sorry, just on that, what is the Pioneer? Is that a piece of equipment?
Yeah.
Which piece of equipment?
Yeah, it's the one that gets driven. Doug, you know.
Yeah, the Pioneer, normally it's the ATV machine that's got the box in the back.
Okay.
Sometimes it's used as a refreshment cart.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Counselor Howell?
So I mean, I don't know what the right way to do this, but I'd like the breakdown from staff on it. But you know, part of the problem I have with that wording there is the hazardous tree removal. So you know, we spend quite a bit of time down on the golf course, and from what I've seen with the hazardous tree removal is they just drop the trees, and it is a absolute mess in through that area. To me, I would think would be better suited maybe to bump that up a little bit, to have the trees that are dead actually removed from the golf course. You know, I mean, to me, it'd be a better time to do it is in late fall or in the winter when a guy can get in there and not destroy the golf course. But just a thought. I mean, to me, $16,000 to replace a side by side, that's it. You're done. You know, and there's no sand or anything. I just don't quite get the number. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with you. It does seem low for the amount of work that is included in that information, for sure. Counselor Nobre?
You know, I think this is an opportunity to let our guys show us that you know, they can get the job done for that amount, right? I mean, if they can do it cheaper, perfect, right? You know, but you know, but to I guess if we're concerned about the low number, should we just pull it out and add some extra funds in there?
Or ask for a report on it, maybe? Counselor Howell?
Yeah, I'm not looking so much for a report. Maybe, you know, like some more information, or you know, perhaps Mr. Wall has, you know, doesn't you know, could feel the flavor of council. Like I don't know. That's why I'm asking you guys. You know, you golf. You know, you golf, right? All of us golf, except I don't. Chris doesn't play a lot of golf, or Councilor Norbury. But you know, don't you guys think they should clean the woods up a little bit? I know the golfers were pretty wired with it, so.
Yeah, I think that would be
Maybe you don't spend any time in the woods, Keith, but I do.
No, I certainly
Throwing
do,
heat?
but, let's just say $16,000 will not clean up those woods either.
No.
Let alone buy a UTV. I think that would be a whole other undertaking project for sure. I know we've had town work bees trying to work on that the last few years, and you know, it's made an impact in some areas, but it definitely could continue, and maybe that's something that we need to look in as well as a work bee or something like that. Councilor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. That's what I was going to ask, because if the trees get cut, why can't we get some sweat equity put in there and say, okay, you guys come down, load it onto the trucks, take it to the gravel pit, get rid of it, so that we don't have to worry about people actually using chainsaws down there, but just when they're cut up, load it onto a truck, take it down to the gravel pit or wherever it's got to go, so that it doesn't cost the district any more money. I'm just not sure if that's a viable option or not. But why can't we use sweat equity?
Can you explain sweat equity?
Well, the people that golf down there, I mean, they should. I know I'm willing to go down and help, and I'm sure lots of people would be. I'm just not worried. I'm just wondering whether or not it's going to have a conflict, because you're kind of infringing on the work that maybe Public Work wants to do or is supposed to do. I don't think they're supposed to. I don't see how that would be a problem, or I'm hoping it's not.
I completely agree with you. I think a lot of the members down there have a vested interest in that golf course and would be more than willing to volunteer some time to help out. I know there was issues with residents using chainsaws down there, and that's probably still an issue, I would assume. But as far as packing wood out, I don't see that being a problem. But that's something we could look into for sure. Mr. Wall?
It sounds like council's headed down the path of increasing the service on tree falling, cleaning up the golf course, which is fine. I would suggest we can move forward with what we've got here in the budget, and then maybe after this is passed, council can just pass a motion saying that administration prepare a report or organize. I'd probably prepare a report on how we can clean up the woods around the golf course.
Councilor Kirby.
Thank you, Your Worship. I like the way the budget sits right now at 16,000. And I think when it comes to the wood clearing after the trees are fallen, I think that's leaving it up to the volunteer groups at the golf course or members. They've always organized it in the past. And I'd be for this recommendation as presented.
Councilor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I'm sorry, can you just explain the Pioneer to me again? What that is?
What it is?
Yeah.
So it's a converted golf cart with a box on the back, so it's used as a mini dump truck kind of thing. No, sorry, Mr. Beal, or Mr. Wall, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's a four-wheel ATV. It's a utility vehicle, so it has a box on the back. So it's a two-seater, two-passenger. It's been there for quite some time. It was used as a refreshment cart as well. It had a box that sit in the back.
Okay,
I know.
gotcha.
Thank you. I know.
Yeah. Councilor.
So I just got a couple other things there, and it's in regards to the 16,000 there for the golf course, sand and sand traps and all that stuff, and then this Pioneer. Do we know what the cost of this Pioneer is alone? Approximate?
Well,
No, how much that the Pioneer is on its own?
Oh, I believe it was somewhere between 8 to 10.
So if it's 10 at 6,000, okay.
Councilor Kalkas.
So just on that, I mean, and it can come back later. I mean, there's no sense harshing it straight out in here. I think I kind of agree that I'm not a golfer, but I mean, I do attempt to be, whatever you want to call it. But I do hear it from a lot of the golfers that are down there in regards to the sand traps and what it should be and what it shouldn't be down there. I'm not a golf course professional, so I just think that's something that this council should look at. It's a gem of our community, or one of the gems of our community, and you hear it from people that are from out of town. So it's not just our locals. You know, people from Dawson Creek and Chetwynd that do come up in golf lots say the same thing about how it's like concrete. I'll use the terminology, and that's most of our sand traps. So I'm concerned there might not be enough there for them to do what the town would want to do, or staff. So, and that could come up later. The other question I had for you, Mayor Bertrand, is I'd like to know what the list of the numerous issues experienced with the facility, funds and needed to ensure the building is a proper working order for the 2019 operating season. That's for the golf club, house, restaurant upgrades. There's no list here, just, $23,000. I'd like to hear what some of the concept is there.
Or what the issues are.
Yeah, like I'd like to, what are we looking at replacing here?
Mr. Wall, do you have any report on that?
Yeah, our hope is moving forward with the lease at the restaurant at the golf course is to get this place into working order so that we can turn it over to the leasee, who's then responsible for the maintenance of the equipment afterwards. So we've got to figure out what's happening with the convection oven. We need to figure out what's happening with the bar dishwasher. There's tables and chairs within it that need to be replaced. There's decking that needs to be looked at. The rails on the patio need to be examined as well. And so probably the biggest issue in there, if it can't be fixed, is the convection oven. So one of the issues that we have with that building is that it is the equipment in it's aging, and so turning that over to an operator, which it fails, and then they want us to fix it. So I think when I delivered that report to council last year, we ended up being $10,000 over the amount of money we brought in revenue in fixes that were going into the restaurant, and this is to try and address that and trying to move towards a lease where the district isn't maintaining equipment within a private business.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Councilor O'Reilly.
Right, and if this is the cost of landlord business, it's the cost of the landlord business, I guess.
Absolutely. I can kind of elaborate on that sand trap issue, Councilor Kalka. I worked golf course for 10 years, and realistically, somebody coming from another community that lands in a sand trap should be taking their ball out of the sand trap free of charge because the amount of rock that's in that sand is actually considered ground under repair. And I don't usually hit out of the sand trap just because of the fear of hitting a rock with my clubs. So I agree with you. I think $16,000 or even $8,000 to bring in a load of sand or a couple loads of sand to work on a couple of sand traps is not enough. And this issue is definitely going to have to be addressed at some point, just because of the amount of gravel that's in the sand. It's going to have to be dug up eventually. Councilor Norbury.
Yeah, I mean, on that, I think after we make our decision on Schedule B, I think we're looking at two motions that we should be asking for staff to look into, and one would be the, regarding the golf course with the adequate tree removal, and then also like report on the sand traps and comparison on top-notch courses. I mean, I've heard the same thing as Councilor Kukalka, in that from both our residents and out of towners, the golf course is an amazing part of our town. So if golfers like yourselves are saying that these aren't up to snuff, well, let's move forward with this amount and have staff come back and say, well, to get it at that high level that we want, we can do it for this budget, or we need more. That's what they have to say.
Councilor Kukalka.
Thanks. Mayor Bertrand, just on that, if I may ask a question through you to Mr. Wall, if that, like, before we start going after report and spending staff time, is this a number that the golf course, so Mr. Beal was happy with, and this is kind of the number that works for them for being able to get it done within this year? Or if that number was to be increased, they could still get that done? I'd be just curious to hear that, if I may.
Get what done? The golf course?
Like if you're like, yeah, so like right now, let's say if it's $10,000 or $6,000 for tree removal and sand. my question would be is, that's the number they picked because that's what they figure they can get done with the amount of staff they have? Or we could increase it and they could still make it work before we ask for a report if we decide to approve this budget?
Mr. Wall.
This was incremental, just to take steps. It's not the limit of what staff could do. We could increase the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Any other comments or questions in regards to Schedule 2? Okay. Call the question then. Second recommendation. Council approves capital and special projects contained in Schedule 2. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councilor Norbury.
I'd like to put a motion that we get staff to provide a report on the necessary steps for adequate tree removal of the wooded areas of the golf course.
Okay, seconder. Councilor Kukalka, open for discussion. Councilor Howe.
Did we just vote for $16,000 to approve it?
That's what they've approved for.
So why didn't we just pull it out? Why didn't we pull it out before we approved it and then whatever?
Councilor Norbury.
I think this is to address the concerns that were brought up, that the $16,000 wouldn't be enough. I think $16,000 would be fine, but if that's not okay, then staff can go out and say, hey, well, it sounds like council wants a more elaborate tree removal scheme, so this is what it would cost in addition to the $16,000, or we can do it for $16,000.
So pretty much you're looking for a report for an overall tree hazard assessment of the golf course instead of just picking out here and there kind of thing. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
To identify, the dangerous trees, and if more money is needed to care of them.
Okay. Comments or questions? Councilor Kukalka.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think they already know the dangerous trees that are there. They've been working on them. I think the concern is about cleaning it up after we knock them down. I think that's where the concern is for people that are down there, and some of the comments I've heard. I mean, I am in the trees all the time, there is a big concern, and it's been mentioned. I've golfed with people in tournaments that are from out of town, And that's what they say, like, it's, you know, that's what you drive by and see. It's not when you have to walk through it. And I think that's what Councillor was kind of mentioning, is maybe more money to actually clean that part up. Not that I'm trying to put a huge workload on district staff, but the same aspect I hear that, you know, we can use sweat equity and stuff like that. I think that becomes a concern as well, because it is district-owned golf course and it's district staff that run it. I think we could, you know, I know some of the people that do sit on golfing and stuff, you could become, to me, that could be a concern from the staff side, us going down there and helping clean up. It was different, I believe, when there was a previous person running the golf course and he did a work bee or 2 work bees. I think that was a bit different, I think. And I could be wrong. I'll get clarification at the end of the day.
Councillor Norwood.
Fair enough. I mean, you know, I misread what Councillor Howe was saying. So yeah, we don't need this.
So, did you want to continue with that motion, or did you want to?
I think if the motion's on the floor and seconded, you just need to move to either accept or defeat the motion.
Okay,
In favor of defeat.
call the question on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you, defeated. Okay, move to third recommendation, please. 3.2. Councillor Falca.
That council approves the capital and special projects contained in Schedule C.
Seconder. Councillor Vincent. Open for discussion. Councillor Howe.
On the high-speed internet, question I have is, if 0 grants are received, will PRIS eventually pay back the entire $1.8 million?
Yes, so Mr. Wall, would you like to elaborate on that, please?
So we won't be in a situation where no grants are received. We know we're gonna receive at least $250,000. And there's very good, if that were to happen, we would sit down with Chris and talk to them about it. Looking at the business model, it would definitely impact their time repayment, but I don't think it would impact their ability to repay over a longer period of time. But having said that, if no grants are received, we have to sit down with Chris and talk about it, because most of our all of our discussions have been based on the fact that we're going to receive pretty substantial grant approval for this, and we will be receiving pretty substantial grant approval. If this grant approval doesn't come back in, it's something that we'll have to sit down with Chris and sit down with council and talk about, because that right now, what I'm putting to you is that that council is putting up a risk of, you know, around $1 million to do this. If the risk that council is ending up having to put up is going to be $2 million, that's not a decision I'll be making myself. That's a decision that council needs to take. But I don't think there's a risk that we come much lower than $600,000 or $700,000 in grants at least.
Okay, Councillor Norwood.
Yeah, and it was my understanding that if in the long term PRIS folds, this infrastructure comes back to us. You know, so you know that's a benefit to ourselves too. It doesn't go back to TELUS; it goes back to us, and we can set the rates, and we can work into a lease agreement with TELUS on providing a service. So it's a win-win, especially if PRIS is going to pay us back.
Councillor Howe.
I mean, that brings in a whole other slew of questions if PRIS were to fold and then we become a telecommunications company. Like, I have zero, we can't run a restaurant in Tumbler Ridge with our council. We have a hard time with the golf course. Like, you know, something like that ever came up, oh God help us, I hope that gets sold off immediately. But
I have no interest in running a telecom.
oh my God, no, here we come. How long are we looking at for payback? My next question. If it does come in to be, we think it's $1 million, how long are we looking at for payback?
5 to 10 years.
So this is a lot of negotiations still have to happen between district and PRIS at this point.
So right now, the high level terms have been agreed to between Chris and the district. We have tomorrow morning, I have a meeting to start drafting up the first draft of the contract. And what will happen is I'll sit down with the PRIS manager. We'll negotiate terms that we agree to. It'll come back to council for ratification. It'll go for his board for ratification. And if either side makes changes, then we'll have to sit back down and renegotiate. So our goal is to be to have the first draft of this contract done mid-February, back to council early March, back to the board early March, and approved by early May.
and then that would give enough time for Chris to move forward with contracting with whoever it is they end up contracting with to come in with implementation.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Counselor Howell?
Is there any interest on the loan?
Mr. Wall?
Yes,
Are we allowed to discuss that?
I would say let us have our negotiations first, and it'll come back to council.
Counselor Howell?
Excuse me. Are we including the commercial and the heavy industrial park?
So the wired fiber is going to the commercial park, and there's going to be a wireless solution for the heavy industrial.
Counselor
So
Howell?
the wireless for the heavy industrial park, similar high speeds to what they're offering?
So it'll be high speed. It'll be higher than what's available now for sure. I'm not going to promise you that Wi-Fi is never as reliable or as fast as wired, but the speed of Wi-Fi on this high speed network will be faster than the wired on the current that we have.
Counselor
And
Howell?
so just for council's thought on this, the reason why I'm so concerned about that is we've had a lot of businesses that used to be in the heavy industrial park that have moved to our downtown core. And that has affected our downtown core with rents, with availability, with space, and it's really changed. And businesses decide to build in different areas within our community based on internet service. Finning, for one, did not want anything to do with the heavy industrial park. They wanted to be in the new commercial park so they could get better internet service. That was one of the it wasn't Finning, it was the guy that built the building for Finning, but that's one of the conversations I'd had with him years ago about, and cell service. He wanted cell service, and there's no cell service out in that area at that time as well. So that's something just for us to take into consideration. I don't like to call out specific companies while we're here, but there are companies that have moved out of there to the downtown core. They could quite easily move back out there, and would probably have a better shot at running their businesses out where they are. So it's that thought process there. Well, that area is important to get done as well. In original stages, we weren't talking about it. So
Yeah, I think this is an important first step to
thanks.
improving all of our telecommunications for sure. Counselor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So, Press is the only one that's interested. TELUS has no desire to come in with high speed.
Mr. Wall?
TELUS made an offer to the district that was not acceptable to the district.
Thank you.
I can't elaborate further because there's confidentiality
That's fine.
signed, but that's where we were with TELUS. So we have talked about this.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Schedule C.
Oh yeah.
Counselor Howell?
Bear Smart Community Assessment. So this is just an assessment to say if we want it to become a Bear Smart community, this is what you would have to do.
Correct.
Or already there, would let us get the certification.
It doesn't commit us to anything though. Okay.
And maybe Dusty wants to share how we got this down to 3,000 because we heard from multiple people this was a 20 to 30,000 report.
What I thought too.
So, Mr. Mayor, for council, I was very fortunate enough to attend the WildSafe BC lecture that was presented at the community center. Spoke with the head WildSafe BC coordinator about the project, and he was a little dumbfounded when I had said what the price was that we were quoted this next assessment. He indicated this is something that it didn't have to be a significant cost. He said that the current WildSafe coordinator could add it to her duties for a nominal fee of $3,000, which they've already quoted me for. And this will just produce an assessment on next steps for us to take, if any, to get our Bear Smart certification.
Excellent, thank you. I think this is a very important part of Tumbler Ridge is ensuring that we are bear safe because we are seeing a lot more coming into town in the summertime, so.
We got to be careful with that though.
Yeah, sorry.
We want to be. I'm squirming in my chair here because I remember what they came in and they said what we had to do to make our community bear smart and bear safe, and that may not be something that our residents want to do. So I'm interested in hearing what they say for $3,000. I don't know if I'm interested in putting it all in place. That's why I'm saying we're not committed to anything. That's why I asked the question. So
For sure, yeah. I'm just elaborating, saying that I think we do need to become aware of our issues because of the amount of bears that have come in over the last couple of years. Counselor Howell?
thermal imaging camera replacement for $14,000. So just a couple of questions on this. I thought that we had just replaced the thermal imaging camera 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And also when the firefighters got their new packs, SCBAs, they had, I think they had thermal imaging cameras on those packs. I wasn't aware of that when they got the packs. And from talking to a friend of mine who's a firefighter, told me how awesome that thing is to have right on his pack or whatever, and how it helped them with the community center fire. So not that I'm against it, I just thought that we had replaced it shortly, or is this a different style, or am I off base on that?
Mr. Wall?
So currently we have a thermal imaging camera on each one of our fire apparatus. The current camera that I'm proposing to replace was purchased in, this was before my time, so this is about early 2000s.
Oh.
It was the very first thermal imaging camera that the department ever saw. You are correct, Councillor, how that not every pack has a thermal imaging camera built onto it. I currently have 4 packs that have thermal imaging cameras.
Okay.
So it's not enough to go around for everybody.
Okay.
This one has started to fail. We've replaced batteries in it. It's starting to act up on
Okay.
scenes, and it's providing a safety issue.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
And 145,000 in 2020. So my question there is what is the idea between the split there? Is the idea there like one portion of land and then another portion of land? And if that is the case, then, and I assume that means there's a portion that we were looking at that was by the Saddle Club, and there's a portion out in the Bull Moose, and both of those would still have to be decided on council if Crown comes back and says, yeah, that's a go for you or whatever. But to me, I think we should move the 2020 back into the 2019, and so that we can make the decision if we would like to make the decision in 2019. I don't see why pushing it out to 2020 helps us any if we have the information back from the government, which could be any day.
Councilor, Mr. Wall, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that split was just there because if we do hear back and we're able to move forward, we're not going to be able to bring both parcels to land within this year, or both parcels to market within this year. We need to focus on one, get the subdivision, get the planning ready, bring it to market. So the plan was to deal with them one at a time. We can purchase them all now, but it won't change that constraint we have that we just won't have the ability to bring both of them to market at the same time.
Thank you. Councilor Howell?
Fair enough. And is that enough money, 295, to purchase both of them, you think?
No, the amount for both.
Like there's more than just purchasing them, what you're talking about for the 295.
That's right. And this will be enough to bring that first the Saddle Club property to market. Yes, but not the Saddle Club and the Bull Moose to market in the first year.
So we're just dealing with each parcel separately on a year-to-year.
Yeah. And like I said, if we wanted to purchase both in the first year, we could. It's just we won't be able to bring them to market within that time frame, or both to market within that time frame.
Councilor Howell?
Well, I just like to be able to have that debate at some point. If they did come back and say, yeah, they're both available, you know, and this is the price for them. I mean, we don't really even know exactly what the price is going to be. It was all over the map when it could be really high or it could be relatively low, right? So, you know, I just like to have that power in council's hands, and if that money is transferred, it's not that you have to spend the money, but it's budgeted for it in case you wanted to do it. If we choose not to during that debate, and Mr. Wall makes the argument to say, no, we can't do it in 2019, then we push it back out to 2020 and make the decision at that time. I just like to have the ability to be able to do it. And if it's not budgeted, maybe we can't do that.
What's the advantage of combining the two in one decision?
Because if the value of the land comes in less than 295, say the value comes in, you can get one for 100 and you can get the other for 50, but now we have made it available, perhaps this is our opportunity to latch on to both of them, right? But start the process on whichever one we choose as a council. Perhaps the Saddle Club one is more important that we want to go, or perhaps we want to go for the rural lots out in the bull moose, right? Like I just don't like to lose that ability to make it still. And the money is budgeted there. We don't spend it if we don't want it, right? It's just there if we want to.
Councillor Ellery.
I think, Mr. Wall, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but, before this purchasing goes through, it's still going to come back to council whether we, just to let us know what's happening. And if it comes back at that lower amount, Councillor Howe was saying, well, we have that option to say, let's get them both. But, so at some point it's going to come back to us. And we're making that decision there, but we're just setting down numbers to preliminary. If it comes in at what we think it is, then we're good to go.
A couple things. So I actually like the idea of combining the 2020 and the 2019 for the rural crown land purchasing. I think that would be a smart move to have that option. So my thoughts are more or less the same as Councillor Howe's. If they do come in at that price, if we can get them both, to me, you're better off. Whether you can, obviously Mr. Wells already said you can only send one parcel out, get one parcel ready, which is fine. But what happens when you buy one and all of a sudden the next year the other one increases? But you could have got it the year before at a better deal. I think, we don't know what the cost is, but I mean, to me, if we have that money, it's already budgeted for. It's not unbudgeted funds.
That's right.
And if you can get it for that, and then next year it ops, well, we've lost out for our taxpayers. So I like that idea, and I think that's something, whether that's a motion or we take it out and redo it, I'm not sure Mr. Wall can give us direction on that.
Okay, Mr. Wall.
Just make an amendment to join, to move the 145 from 2020 to 2019.
I'd like to make that amendment.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Kirby. Any more discussion on it? All in favor? Carried, thank you.
So if I may, just on the street banners, and I'm not trying to get right into it, but are we looking at just replacing them with the same concept we're going with today? So in another 5 years or 6 years, we're going to replace them again? Or are we looking at something better within the district, metal ones, or something that's long lasting? I'm just curious on that, if it's the same kind of banners.
Mr. Wall.
This would be the same type of banners. We could move to the permanent metal banners if council wants. It'll be more expensive on the upfront cost, but it'll be lower on the long-term cost. It's council's choice.
Thank you. Councillor Capel.
I'm just wondering if we can ask Mr. Wall what that cost would be, or I'm not throwing it out there if you don't know if we could remove it and bring it back at a later time. I think we're better off, like, it seems we replace these, and if we can go with something that's more long lasting, that again will save money to the taxpayers, because we're not replacing them every 5 or 6 years or whatever the cycle is. Depends how much wind we get in Tumbler Ridge this year, how our summer ones last as well. So I'm just curious if he has a number.
We'll have to get back to council on the metal costs.
Councillor Howe first.
Yeah, and just with the street banners, it'd be a good debate for us to talk about. I mean, like, I like the ability to be able to change the banners based on the fact that things change in the community. We weren't a geopark 5 years ago, now we are, and like that flow of being able to do it. But the debate is warranted. I think I'd like to hear Councillor Krukowska's ideas, and if it's substantial cost savings on it, then why not? So I'd be in favor of removing that until we can get some information from staff.
Mr. Wall. Right.
Just suggest that council goes with the First Amendment on rural crown land before you get into the next one.
I thought we already did.
Was it voted?
Yeah.
I missed it. Apologies.
No problem.
I was like, I thought we voted on it.
Councillor Capel.
Yeah, that was my comment. I'd like to remove that for now, and maybe have staff just bring that back to the next budget meeting, if there's possibly the one after that, with a price discrepancy there, and just to see. I mean, if this is something we can do, and to me, if staff's happy with the different design, that it's still eye appealing and stuff like that, but long term we save money for the taxpayers and stuff like that, I think it's a no brainer.
Yeah, there is definitely a risk on choosing what you want to put on those metal ones, because they're definitely going to last a lot longer. So, like Councillor Howe said, the flow of 5 year terms, you may want to change it. You may even want to change the metal ones in 5 years. You never know, depending on. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. If you were to go to a metal sign, you could just go over top of them again. So at least with the fabric, you can't reprint over top of. So metal would work. It's just you'd have to change all of the supports, because the rods and the strapping would have to be all changed out. is my assumption, but definitely at least you can have a double-sided sign out there and you can actually strip them down and reuse them again. So it is dual purpose that way.
Okay. So do we need a motion to take that out? Someone like to make a motion on that? Councilor Kalka.
I'd like to make the motion to remove the street banner out of budget Schedule C.
And, okay, yep. Seconder. Councilor Lehman. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions on Schedule C? Okay, I'll call the question on the amended recommendation. All in favor? All opposed? Carried, thank you. Councilor McCutcheon.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we ask for staff to provide a report on costing for street banners with a second option.
Okay, seconder. Councilor Majinski. Any other discussion on that? Councilor Howe?
So just to help staff out with this, I like the way I thought we were looking at these metal signs is like in the winter time they're actually cut and look like a snowflake and there's holes in it, or it looks like a snowman or whatever. Perhaps I'm wrong, and maybe you're thinking it's just a rectangular thing that you put a decal on, and that seemed to me like that's so just to help staff out. What are we looking at here? Like is that what you were thinking, like a decal type style, or?
Councilor Kalka.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna use the concept, but Dawes Creek has the same thing, they have cutouts. So,
Cutouts.
yeah, it's not a solid sign, it's a cutout or whatever, so, I mean, there might be a better option, and maybe staff already has an idea that they've thought of, I mean, I've seen Mr. Wall turn around to staff to see if there was a cost there, so it must be something they've looked at. So I'd like to see what their idea was.
Okay.
A longer lasting,
Well,
different material.
yeah, I think staff has an idea there,
Yeah.
they've already looked at it.
We looked at it when we were replacing, or when we first put up these banners, and we had a conversation on council at that time, so it's not hard, it won't be hard for us to go figure that out and come back to council. And I had assumed you meant it's cutouts similar to Dawson Creek.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments about the motion? Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, fourth recommendation on 8.2, please, Councilor McCullough.
Council approves the capital and special projects contained in Schedule D.
Seconder. Councilor Norbury. Open for discussion. Councilor Howe.
Okay, just get some explanation on how this is carryover. Like, how does that work as carryover? We've already approved this, or all these things?
Yeah, I believe so. Mr. Wall, could you elaborate, please?
Yeah, these are all funds that have been approved in last year's budget. Unspent.
Councilor McCullough.
If I may, Mayor Bertrand, just curious on why we would pay out money in, I'm looking at 2017 pavement. Okay, but then
Councilor McCullough.
so we wait, so I'd like to, may I make a motion? I'd like to see us remove the 2017 pavement replacement plan payment and the 2018 pavement replacement plan payment from this Schedule D.
Just like to request council not do that at this time.
Sorry?
Yeah, I think we can wait on that motion until we go into close.
I won't be voting in favor of this payment, so.
So,
I'm just saying if we can remove that part off the Schedule D, vote it separate, whatever we want to do, but to me, if I see some concerns there, and I preferably don't want to vote in favor of paying it.
so maybe we need a little bit more,
Maybe council can move that specific motion into closed, and we'll talk about it in closed. And then this can be separated out, decided in closed, not that you don't have to approve it now. You can move that motion into closed, and we'll talk about it in closed.
Okay.
move this Schedule D into closed meeting.
Move Councilor Kapoka's motion into closed.
1 and 2.
Okay, so amend my motion then? So I'd like to amend it to the 2017 pavement replacement plan payment and the 2018 pavement replacement payment is moved into closed.
favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, any other discussion on Schedule D? Counselor Howell?
The interpretive trail. Final payment on the interpretive trail. The project is complete. Substantial completion has been issued. So this is just to finish paying that money off. Is this money coming? How does that $200,000 work?
It's,
Mr. Wall?
it's funds that had been budgeted last year and hadn't been spent. I don't think the district didn't put any funds in this project. Did we? For the grant. So this is just finishing the disbursement of the grant.
So it's through the community forest. It's money the community forest is spending because we own the community forest. It's getting onto our budget.
No, the community forest provided us funds to do this project. So it's a district project for which we received a grant from the community forest and the provincial government,
So who do we pay the $200,000 to then?
the contractors.
Okay.
Counselor Norwood?
Yeah, I think my clarification was that we received 230-ish thousand from the government grant, and then 170 from the community forest. So this is a $400,000 project that has half left to pay up. Okay. 500. Large.
Close. Okay, Counselor Howell?
And is the idea? I assume the idea is. I just wanted to confirm the building envelopes that we're looking at doing on everything. The idea there is to utilize the same contractor to do it all at one time, so we save costs, right? And there's no additional add-ons to the buildings. Like we're not adding an additional bay to the fire hall or the public works building. This is strictly to fix the envelope insulation value.
The same envelope, I believe, that was presented to previous mayor and council.
Yeah,
Counselor Howell?
that's why I didn't think we had decided on which color scheme or option or which way we were going. Right?
And that's coming, you haven't, and that's why the budgeted amounts here are for engineering and tender creation. This will be on February 11th, P&P, for discussion.
But sorry, go ahead.
The goal is, on this project, for council to move forward to make final decisions on design, color, and if there is gonna be any additions, there was conversation at the time of making additions to the public works building, so that all needs to be decided. It will go out, and then once council makes those decisions, the tenders will be created, and the goal would be to have that done this year, so in the next year's 2020's construction season, they would be ready to go.
Okay.
Counselor Lehman?
I was thinking, Mayor Bertrand, these estimates, how were they?
On the buildings, and they provided us cost estimates.
Any more questions or comments on Schedule D? Counselor Majinski?
Sale of the golf course. Is that's in to buy the land? That is that's actually not part of the golf course right now to be bought, so that the golf course could eventually be sold. Is that correct? Or in the potential for somebody to privately buy it?
I believe so. I believe there's some land title issues around the golf course. Mr. Wall, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, part of that time, if you wanted to fix it, you just take out an eraser and fix it. It's a lot more difficult process now, and we're going through it. So it's been submitted to the provincial government, and hopefully that will be that, and it'll all be taken care of.
Does that include the road down to the golf course?
Yeah, we're also looking into that. So the district doesn't actually own that road, and we're talking about upgrading that road, but we want to make sure that we have at least some surety that that road is going to stay before we make that investment. So that's part of the project.
Okay. Counselor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Going back to Schedule A, that's why I didn't have any comments there, because of the potential. If we're going to be putting more money into the golf course, for us to sell it, might not be feasible to keep dumping more money, especially if we're looking at a new packer for the greens and stuff like that. That's a lot of money. If we're just going to try to sell it to a private firm or whatever down the road. So that's just my concern, is if we're going to get this land and then sell it, and then we've got it up to be resellable. So that'd be a fear of mine to go do all this work and then have,
We
go to
still
somebody
need-
else.
Yeah, I understand your concern there. We still need to continue our service with the golf course, and that includes upgrading equipment and features of it too. Councilor Howell?
And it's to make the ability to sell the golf course even possible, and like I think, maybe I won't go down that road yet, but if we wanted to sell the golf course at any point, this has to be done first, because there's right of ways that aren't cleared up and stuff like that. It's just so that if it ever came to it, we could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think we need to get that cleared up just so we have proper land title there for sure. Any other questions or comments on Schedule E? Going once. Okay, call the question, recommendation. All in favor? Recommendation, Mr. Wall and your staff for all your comments. All right, moving on to 8.3, schedule of meetings. Any comments or questions about that?
Sorry, I don't know when the right time to ask the question is, but if it was something that we wanted to bring to staff's attention, maybe that needs to be added into this, something needs to be removed,
Into an actual agenda?
no, like into this,
Schedule?
yeah, like when would be the right time to do that?
Well, at the beginning of the week when the agendas are being prepared, I believe, but we can address the issue now if you have one.
Yeah, so the issue that I want to bring up is about the Visitor Information Center. So I've talked to a few residents and had a little peek into the building there myself, and I don't know what the plan is, and perhaps staff already has this covered already, but I haven't heard anything about it yet. There's some gaps in the building, so there's some spots where you can see light through it. And the logs apparently are supposed to be, from what I remember, in council stained every 2 to 3 years. And we had discussed that in council of setting that up on a maintenance agenda. Or maybe that should be added into the I don't know, Schedule A, Public Works, or something that we should mention to staff that in my mind that's a building that we want to make sure stays maintained and is tiddled up there. And if we need to bring the contractor in to tell us what needs to be done or stained, and I want that on an ongoing basis. If it needs to be stained every 3 years, it should be in our budget for every 3 years. Same as when we do the roads, where we do the tarring of the roads. That has to be done on a maintenance scheduled basis. And I think that the building should be set up that way as well.
Yeah, so that kind of a topic would be discussed with Mr. Wall during the week before an agenda comes out, or so he can add it to an agenda, especially on a budget, if it needs to be added into a budget. I thought you were talking about scheduled meetings there, but yeah, that definitely should be addressed and looked at, and we can add that to it.
Okay, I'll bring that up with him privately then.
I'd just let council know we are aware we've had one of the people, an expert on those logs, up already. We're bringing them up again, so we do know that cinching needs to take place, and we're taking a look at how it can be done. We're trying to work with the original builders. We're aware of it, and we are working on it.
Okay.
Okay, anything on schedule of meetings? Do you see any conflict there? Good, okay. Any notice of motions? No? Okay. Councilor's business? Councilor Nolan?
So I'd like to bring up something that I've come across in my dealings with the public, and it's in regards to speech therapy. So what I've heard is that, what I know is that there's been issues with families and parents not able to get the adequate speech therapy for their children that they need. And it's an ongoing issue that's sort of come about the last 10 years as technology becomes more and more prevalent in the home. Parents are talking less, there's less. Before this comes once a month, and the need is more. So some private citizens have taken upon themselves to reach out to a private therapist in Chetwynd, and that person is coming once a week for the remainder of the school year, which is great. I'm glad that that the service can be provided, but in my mind, I would like to, as a council, make a request of Northern Health to bring this to their attention, that this is an area that we need more services, and so I'm not making a motion tonight, but I plan to work with yourself, Mayor, or Mr. Wall in bringing sort of motion forward in the future to address the needs of our residents and either increase that service provided or have Northern Health look into how they can provide a cost reimbursement, something like, it's something that our residents need, and
No, I agree with you, and it's definitely a deficiency, and I can certainly work together on that and contact Northern Health. And I believe the speech therapy in the past was done through the school system too, so we can definitely look into that. Sure. Any other council business? Councilor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. January 18th, I got to attend the NDIT meetings, and as a regional, part of the regional action committee, I was the alternate for Miss Kirby. It was actually quite an eye-opener of what they do and what their whole basis is on, and how they fund, and what they are all about, and how they get their money. For us, they much fund all economic development projects in the Peace Region, and anybody can apply. And once that grant has been paid out, you can actually reapply for another one. So you're not limited to just one, and it's not restricted to how many grants are per community or per capita, whatever. So it's quite impressive, and they have a point system of how they rate something for how it's going to improve a community, and I thought that was quite impressive of what they can do and how they help communities in the area. So I just thought I'd just have a few points on that, and if anybody has any questions or want any information.
I have a question.
Sure.
They're a very important group in our area that's supported many projects. Is their money going to run out? Like, it just seems like they have an endless amount of money to give to everybody.
They have budgeted every year 2.2 million. So, and their overall for each region, so our Northeast region, we have, I think, 26 million in the bank, and then they allot, because they base it on their bank account and the interest that they gain on, and that's what they use as their allocated funds. So that's how they kind of keep rolling it over.
Okay.
And the majority of their funding that they got through the province was through the Pine Beetle Initiative, and that's what they...
The money they got from the sale of the logs?
I believe so, yes, and the land, stuff like that as well, yeah. So,
You know, it's an excellent organization. It's really important to communities like ours. Thank you. Any other councilor business besides the sun all of you got? Councilor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure, I had some discussions with people about Sekonka cul-de-sac. And I'm not sure what's going on there, but like, I keep getting questions and I really don't have any answers because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I visited Sekonka Place myself a couple weeks ago and had a little informal meeting with 4 of the residents there, and a couple of them were long-term residents there, and they've been dealing with that issue for quite some time, over 10 years. The day that I went, it was incredibly unsafe to even get out of your vehicle. I have requested, Mr. Wall, try to pay extra attention to that area because of the safety issues that are being, presented there. I did witness a drainage pipe on one of the residents' driveways that is pretty much creating a river. So it seems to me that's definitely a problem for that area. But I believe that we are going to be revisiting that spring and hopefully finding a solution to the problem long term this year. Mr. Wall, did you want to elaborate on that? I pretty much summed it up.
Also, another thing is, somebody was asking me about using the airport for drag racing. I don't know.
Snowmobile or
Actual cars.
cars. Yeah, I believe that the airport needs some upgrades.
Yeah.
With the pavement specifically. But that's definitely something we can look at in the future after the upgrades, possibly. Mr. Wall, did you want to upgrade?
I agree. Maybe if I found out what vehicles they were planning to use, maybe, but
There's
I'm not gonna say no right now, but I'm heavily.
there's definitely specifications for drag racing, 100%.
Well, it's just questions that come up and like, you know, I mean, we're supposed to be listening to the residents, so I mean, all I can do is ask and then we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Council Kirby?
Well, to Mr. Lim, is there a powder puff placement in this drag racing?
Okay, any other council business? So, just to elaborate on the email I sent you all, I attended the BC Natural Resources Forum last week, Prince George. It was very eye-opening, my first experience of that nature with that kind of a forum. There was close to 1,500 people in attendance at the forum, lots of keynote speakers, one with the premier. The overall theme, I think, that I took from the forum was overall innovation, looking into the future, making all of industry more innovative and productive. A very strong emphasis on the Clean BC plan to cut down greenhouse gas emissions and carbon, and a very strong emphasis on inclusion of First Nations in all projects, all the way up to an equity partnership as well. Many First Nation speakers mentioned that a lot of our First Nations are tired of managing poverty and by becoming partners in some of these projects in the area or in all BC will increase their ability to enhance their way of life and their quality of life. So yeah, that was very good. I did sit in on a Peace River Regional District meeting with Minister of Environment and Minister Flynn, I guess it is now. And it was, in my eyes, it wasn't very productive as far as getting any information from them, besides the fact that the timeline to come up and consult with municipalities and local governments will be sometime beginning of February. They did mention that when they do come up, they're coming up with a draft. They're not coming up with a signed piece of paper. This draft has not been presented to the ministers, so the consultation process is about to begin, which we've been asking for quite a while. But it was productive in the fact that we did air our concerns directly to the ministers, so that was helpful, I hope. So that's about all. I did think the resource forum was incredible opportunity, now that I've seen it, to next year to set up more meetings with government. I was very impressed with the amount of government that was represented there. And, also very impressed with the amount of security that was involved. We did have one gentleman try to enter the Civic Center without an invitation, and kind of got out early and was quickly escorted out. So, yeah, no, it was a very good experience. I found. Yeah, that's about all I got. Question and answer period, section 11. We do have a gallery member today. Do you have any questions? Okay. All right. Before we move to 12.1, I'd like to take a quick 5-7 minute break. Recess. I got it.
Trying to get a hold of you there.